Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Slay, and I am a senior data scientist here at Dataiku. And with me today, I have Ryan Bridges from the sustainability team at JBS. So today we're going to be going over a large language model project that we're currently developing at JBS, where we are taking their previously answered questionnaires and ingesting that information into a RAG pipeline that JBS can then use to automatically answer new questions and have those answers automatically populated in the Excel template of their choosing. So with that being said, Ryan Bridges, I will hand it off to you to provide an overview of yourself as well as JBS as a company.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. So my name is Ryan Bridges. I am a global sustainability data specialist with JBS. My main focus is to cover scope 1, 2, 3 GHG emissions inventories, but then also help collect and manage our sustainability data for ESG reporting. So a little bit about JBS. We are a leading global food company, one of the largest protein producers in the world. Number one in poultry, number one in beef, number two in pork. So very large company focused on providing sustainable food to millions of people every day. With that being said, we do want to talk about sustainability specifically here. So Ryan, if you want to go to the next slide. So for this specific project, um, how things work at JBS is we need to put together a annual sustainability questionnaire on behalf of the company. Ultimately, we have a sustainability report that we issue every single year to showcase all of our achievements and progress against our goals and showcase how sustainable we are as a company. And to do that, we need to collect a lot of information from across our different regions. We have regions, operations across the world, including Brazil, Australia, Mexico, Europe, the United States, and many other locations. So that being said, what we do every year is we put together this large questionnaire that's used to ask all of these regions sustainability questions related to water, related to energy, related to animals. A lot of questions that is needed to be asked. So with that being said, it's a lot of manual work that we're doing currently. We're using Excel spreadsheets to collect this information and previously even Word documents. So it's a lot of tedious manual work that we've been using. And so what we've done is we reached out to Dataiku to kind of help us automate this process and to help us kind of reduce the load of answering questions year over year. So the intention here is that we can answer questions more easily using an LLM. So based off of previous year's answers, previous reports, we can then see that the LLM answers for us and then reduces that time that we need to answer questions. So I'll let Ryan Slay go through a quick demo of the project. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you for providing that overview. So as Ryan Bridges mentioned, we are now going to jump into the demo portion of this project and see how everything actually works. So remember that as a quick refresher, JBS has a variety of regional teams located all across the globe. And each one of these teams receives the exact same questionnaire documents on any given year. So the MAPE team receives the environmental questionnaire, the food safety questionnaire, all of these. The LSTM team receives all of these questionnaires. So the overall goal of the project, like Ryan Bridges was saying, was to take the data from the previously answered questionnaires and ingest that information into a RAG pipeline that would allow JBS to then automatically answer new questions rather than needing to go find the old documents, manually searching for the relevant question, and then copying and pasting that answer into this year's current template. Now, the trick here was to make sure that we built the project in a way that would allow the LLM to source the correct information. So what I mean by that is we could ask the question, how is the environmental area structured at MAPE? And we want to make sure that it's not using a previous response for the LSTM regional team. So this is really important because even though each of these teams is answering the exact same questions, their answers could be just a little bit different. So we tried a variety of different approaches, and we found the way that worked best was to or format the data into a JSON dictionary before embedding it into a vector database and before answering new questions. So we're going to go into details on that in the project, which we'll take a look at now. So on my screen here, you can see that we have a pretty big project, and we begin with two different flow zones in order to ingest our source information. So we have one flow zone for Word documents and one for Excel. The reason for this is because in this demo project, we're looking at data from a variety of previous years. And in 2022, the regional teams received their questionnaires in a Word document format. And in 2023, the JBS sustainability team converted the questionnaires over into an Excel format. So I have an example here, which I'll pull up on my screen. And you can see that in both of these documents, we're looking at the environmental questionnaire for the MAPE regional team. The only difference being that this is for 2022 over here on my left, and over here on my right is 2023. So if we look at the Word document, you can see that we have a variety of different sections with questions and answers. So we have a section for water questions. We scroll down a little bit. We have a section for energy questions, as well as a few other sections down the page. And then in 2023, this was converted into Excel, where now we have the energy tab and the water tab, and the other one's shown on my screen here. So the first task that we wanted to do is to bring this information into the Dataiku platform in a way that would be more useful for our use case. But even once we bring the text in, you can see that each of these sections has a lot of questions and answers all in a single section. So we want to be able to create a data set that has each question and answer on their own respective lines. So in a data set that we're going to create, we want to have question one, answer one on the first line. On the second line, we want this question and answer, and then the same idea for every other question and answer within this document. So we'll begin by taking a look at how we did this for the Word documents and this first flow zone right here. So within Dataiku, there's a variety of different ways of how you can bring your data into the platform. And one of the ways is by using what we call a managed folder. So a managed folder allows users to be able to store all types of different data. So you can bring in structured data like CSV files, Excel files, but you can also bring in unstructured data. So Word documents, PDFs, images, even YAML files. Basically anything that you would store on a local laptop or shared drive, you can also store in a managed folder. So what I've done is I took two Word documents and dragged and dropped them into the platform. And you can see that in this demo, we're looking at the environmental questionnaires for two different regions, MAPE and PFSS. So once we brought that information in, we connected the Dataiku text extraction plugin, and this allowed us to create our first data set called Word Extracted. So if I click into the data set here, you can see that we have 8 different rows, and each of our documents is represented 4 different times. We have MAPE 2022, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then PFSS 1, 2, 3, 4. So what's going on is that the text extraction plugin looked at our source document, and it's looking at some of the metadata behind the scenes. So it noticed that we have this first section here for environmental questions, and it took all of the text, so every single one of these questions and answers, and put it into this first row in the text column right here. So if I click on complete value, you can see that we have all of that text in a single field. Then it scrolled down the page and it noticed that we had section 2 for water, which is being shown right here. And same idea, it took all of those questions and answers and put them into a single field. So I have an example in the slides that might be a little bit easier to see, where you can see that we have the Word document. The first question is, please describe your internal environmental management system. That same text, as well as all the other text on that section, is provided in that first cell here. So this is great, but remember that ideally we want to have this question and answers on their own individual rows. So there's a variety of different ways to do this. And the first approach that we tried was actually using a Python recipe and writing some code and using some regular expressions to do just that. So wrote some code, uploaded my sample documents, and it worked pretty well. I was able to get these individual question and answers on their own lines. However, I then brought in the rest of the questionnaires from all the other regions, and the code was no longer as effective. So the reason for that is, remember, we're sending these questionnaires all out across the globe, and they're being answered by a variety of individuals who, all of whom understandably have their own different types of writing styles. So while many people like to use big paragraphs or complete sentences, other people might answer more in a bulleted format or tables or a mix of different formats. And so while we could technically account for all of those nuances within our code, it's likely that over time, the people that are being tasked with answering these questions are going to change. They're going to bring in their own writing styles, which means that somebody would likely have to go back into the project and maintain the code year over year to account for those changes. So instead of doing that, we decided to pivot our approach and actually have the LLM do that work for us. So as a side note, Dataiku has a variety of built-in LLM features, which we call the LLM recipes and are denoted by the pink background. The one that we're seeing on our screen right now is called the prompt recipe. So this allows us to connect an input data set and ask the LLM to perform a certain task for us. So we originally connected the first data set, tried a few different approaches in order to break up those individual question answers, and it worked pretty well. However, we did a lot more prompt engineering, and we found that the LLM worked great if we first packaged up the data as a JSON dictionary. So here we're seeing that we extracted our text from the original Word documents, and then we used a prepare recipe in order to nest the data as a JSON dictionary. So if I click into my data set here, you can see that we still have 8 rows, but now we have this column that I call nested data. So if I click on show complete value, you can see that we still have all of the text, all of the questions and answers from a specific section in a single cell. But now we've added some extra metadata in these key value pairs. So again, we have this JSON dictionary, but now we know the source questionnaire and the source region and the other items that you're seeing on your screen. So we go back to the slides just to make this point clear. We brought in our text from the Word documents, stored in that first data set. Then we use that text as the input for our prepare recipe in order to create this nested data column and provide those extra key value pairs right there. So once the data had been packaged up in this format, we then use that as the input for our prompt recipe. So if we double click into the prompt recipe, you can see that we're able to choose from a variety of different LLM connections that have been set up by the administrator. We can let the LLM recipe know which column to use in our input data set, and then we're able to provide it the instructions. So going over this pretty quickly, you can see that we're telling the LLM it's being provided a JSON dictionary, and the text is coming from a variety of different questionnaires. At the end of the day, we want you to split out the questions into single questions, single answers, and the output format should be a list of dictionaries. So question 1 goes in the first dictionary, where we have the question number, the original question, the original answer. Once that's complete, move on to question 2 and put it into its own dictionary. And you keep doing that for all of the text within a given section. So again, this took a little bit of prompt engineering. We had to provide some examples to make sure that we were getting the output that we wanted. We hit run, and in our output data set, we get the column called LLM output. So if I open this up and show complete value, you can see that we have a list. Question 1 is in the first dictionary. Question 2 is in the second dictionary. And it keeps going on for all of the questions in our original Word document. Now, I know this might be a little messy to see, but I've created a cleaner example on the slides here, where again, you can see we have a list, dictionary 1, dictionary 2, so on down the line. So this format was really important because it gets us very close to our end goal of having one question answer per row. All we had to do is then use a prepare recipe and what we call the unfolding processor. And what that does is it creates a new column for each one of the key value pairs within our dictionaries. So we're going to have a tab column answer column, original question column, basically everything you're seeing on your screen right here. And it's also going to allow us to break it up into those individual rows. So remember that in the previous data set, we were looking at 8 rows. We used the prepare recipe. And now in our output data set, we have those individual columns. By clicking to here, we can show complete value. So it's one question, one answer, and now we have 76 rows. And that's what's being shown on the next slide here. So with just a few steps, a little bit of pointing and clicking, we are able to take our source documents, use an LLM, and automatically create one row per question and answer in a matter of minutes. So that's how we brought in the Word document information. And the second step was then to bring in those Excel documents. So if we look back at the Excel tab, you can see that we have some header information that we don't always need to include in terms of embedding the LLM. We're really most interested in the questions and answers, and we have a few different tabs. But even with different formats, we were still able to upload a variety of Excel documents and really with just one prepare recipe, create that same tabular format. So I'll click into this a sec, but just want to show in the manage folder here, instead of just looking at the environmental questionnaires, we're now looking at also the sustainability questionnaire in that Excel document format. Again, this is for the 2023 questionnaire year, and we are still looking at the MAPE regional team and PFSS. So we uploaded that information, brought in the documents, was able to do a little bit of text cleaning, and we get a data set that looks very similar to what we just saw with that Word form. So we have our source information, and now we want to go ahead and bring that together. So in Flow Zone 2, we have the Excel text, we have the Word text, so both the questions and answers, and all we're doing is combining them into a single data set called combined output. Pretty simple, which then allows us to move to Flow Zone 3, which is where we actually embed this information into a vector database. So with the combined input data set, I'm again going to package up that information as a JSON dictionary. I could have used the prepare recipe like we did before with the Word documents right here. However, just because this is a demo project, I wanted to show that we're also able to accomplish the same task with code. Just shows the flexibility of the Dataiku platform where whether you're a point and clicker or you know how to code, it's interchangeable with whatever method you would like to use on your projects. So we received this output data set called combined input embedding. We still have the JSON dictionary. We have 274 rows. And the embedding data column is what we're going to be inputting into our vector database. So if I select show complete value, you can see that we have the region, the questionnaire, as well as that original question and original answer. So this was really important because as I was mentioning at the beginning of this use case, we need to make sure that when we're asking new questions, the LLM knows which source information to use from previous questionnaires. And again, these teams are receiving the exact same questions over and over again. So if we package the information without providing some of this extra metadata, we could ask the question, please describe your internal environment. And it's not like everybody is always going to answer a question saying, MAPE has this, this, and this. They don't always use the company name in every single answer. So by providing the region at the top of this dictionary, it really did help the LLM go through and source the correct information when answering those new questions. So really, really helpful for answering questions later on. So we take each one of those individual questions and answers in their own dictionaries, and then we use another LLM recipe called the embedding recipe. So if we click into here, this allows us to choose our knowledge column. So it's that embedding data with the dictionaries, as well as some metadata information for the LLM to reference. We're also able to decide things like chunk size, the embedding model that we want to use, and vector store. So we hit run, and this is how we get our knowledge bank, which has been trained on the data that we have ingested. So that's the really big first part of the project. And originally we sent this over, and JBS is able to use it in order to ask new questions in batch as well as a web app, and then get their outputted in the batch questions in a tabular format. So this is great because now they're not having to go and manually open up old documents and search for the relevant questions. They can upload new questions and get all of their answers and then download them into a single Excel sheet or CSV sheet if they want. However, there's a lot of different questionnaires that they would have to do that for. So that means they could download that source information from the LLMs, copy and paste the answers into the new templates. And maybe that's okay if you have one region and one or two questionnaires, but that still takes a lot of time if you have to copy and paste all those answers across the various tabs for the environmental questionnaire, the food safety questionnaire. So instead, we're currently in development on phase 2 of the project, which allows the JBS team to automatically have the LLM populate the Excel template with those answers without the JBS team needing to copy and paste anything on their own. So that's what's going on in the remaining of these flow sections, is that in our flow zones. So in flow zone 4, we have a folder called template combine. So if you click into here, you can see that we have the environmental questionnaire and the sustainability questionnaire. Now, if I bring these over, you can see that they look very similar to the questionnaire from 2023. We have the questions, but we don't have any answers. Now, we have these tags on the different tabs. We'll talk about those in a moment. But the point for right now is that we're uploading these blank templates, and we want the LLM to automatically populate its answers in the appropriate sections right here. So if we go back to the flow zone, what we're doing is we're bringing in those new templates, just like before with the Excel documents with the actual answers. We're extracting the text, in this case, just the questions. Again, we're using a Python recipe to package up that information as a dictionary. And then we're connecting our vector database to another prompt recipe. So basically we're saying, hey, LLM, here's some new questions that we would like you to answer. Can you please use our vector database as a reference material in order to answer those new questions? And if we click into this data set, you can see, again, we have another column with JSON dictionaries. This time it's called question data. If we show the complete value, you can see that's very similar to what we've seen before. However, even though we have the question, we don't have a metadata field for the answer because these are new questions, blank templates. So the LLM is going through, we're answering those questions for each one of the regions, and then we're combining it with the source templates format so that we can copy and paste those answers back into the blank templates and have them automatically populated. All right, so as I mentioned before, if we take a look at those Excel documents again on the blank template, we have these tags, environment.energy, pull this up, environment.water, environment.biodiversity, so on and so forth. So what's happening here is you can see that even though we're bringing all the question and answers for every single tab in a single data set, we need to eventually break them out into their own data sets based on the tabs that are being provided in the template. So when we're taking a look at the water data set, this plugin is going to know that when we're on the water tab, it should only use the information from the water data set. When we're on the energy tab, we want to make sure that it's only using the information from the energy data set. So that's what this .energy, .water, and the other ones are doing. It's showing the plugin which data set it needs to be using. The way it knows where it should start the copy and paste, because remember that we have some additional information at the header of each one of these tabs. And we don't want the plugin to automatically start pasting the answers in row A or column A, row 1, or row 11, or wherever it may be. So by providing this tag, which I'll show where we put into the plugin, this tells the plugin, okay, you have your questions and answers. I want you to start pasting here and populating these results. So if we click into one of these recipes, you can see that we're using as input the template folder. So this has both the sustainability and the environmental template. There's a data set for each one of the 5 tabs within the environmental questionnaire. And then this is the data set keyword. So I could have used any keyword I wanted to. I used environment just to keep it consistent with what we've been seeing throughout the project. But by putting environment and then .energy, this is where it knows to start that copy and paste. And we have this displayed a little bit on the slides here, showing how everything maps out. So at the end of the day, we have 2 flow zones, one for each of the different templates that we are using in this demo. So we have one for environmental and one for sustainability. We are able to run a scenario so that it's processing the questions and answers for each one of our selected regions. And then in our output folder, we're going to get 4 different files. So we're going to get 2 files for the MAPE region and 2 files for PFSS. So if we click into output combined, you can see just that. We have MAPE environment, and then I've given it the ending here of underscore LLM, just to make it clear that these are LLM responses, because the JBS team still needs to send these out to the regional teams to make sure that they confirm with the answers and if they want to add anything else. But if we open up one of the documents, which I have on my screen here, you can see that we're looking at the MAPE environmental questionnaire for both of these Excel documents. Now, I've gone ahead and changed the color here just for the purposes of this demo to make it clear that these are the LLM responses and then these are the original responses. So if we look at the general tab, we can compare the answers. I have another slide that makes it a little bit easier to compare here. But one thing I want to point out is you can see that the LLM is using the team name right here in its response. So again, I've gone through and actually bolded and underlined this. That wasn't the LLM, but just want to make it clear that we are using the correct region for each one of our respective documents. So for the MAPE questions, it's using the previous MAPE responses. If we open up the PFSS documents, it's using the previous responses for that regional team as well. So it's done this for all of the different tabs within our data set. And if we go back to my slides, I've copy and pasted some of the answers from the original document that we used as our source material, as well as the answers that were provided by the LLM. So in this example, you can see that we're looking at the general tab within the environmental questionnaire. Here's the question that it was provided. The original answer said all 11 main processing sites have this environmental management system. Notice that the LLM answer was very similar, talks about the same environmental management system. It also mentions all 11 of the main processing sites, but it's not necessarily a word for word copy of that original answer. So again, this just shows how we're able to upload previous documents, automatically extract that information, have that information used as source material for our RAG pipeline, get answers to newly uploaded questions, and have those answers automatically populated in the Excel template of our choosing. So that is the beauty of the project, which will reduce a ton of manual effort and likely save the JBS team a lot of time along the way. All right, so now that we've seen how the project actually works, I'm going to hand it back to Ryan Bridges so he can talk about how this project is going to impact his team moving forward. Ryan Bridges, take it
Thank,
away.
thank you so much, Ryan, for the wonderful demo. It's a absolutely wonderful project and wonderful automation. So thank you so much, Ryan, for showcasing this. So go to the next slide, please. So with this project, we expect, upwards of 50% time savings with this project. So on the left, you have a before Dataiku, after Dataiku project. So this is also across the ESG questionnaire piece. So it's the development of the ESG questionnaire, it's the actual answering of the questionnaire, and it's also the analyzing of that questionnaire. So between all three of those pieces, we expect a 50% time savings for each one of those for this project. So it's an incredibly important project that we're super, super excited that we've been able to do. And then moving on, we also have, this is just phase one of the project. So we have a lot of time savings with our current phase of the project. But as Ryan also showed in his demo, was a little bit of phase two, where it's talking about how we can take these Excel templates and automatically populate those based on the LLM answers. So this will save us, our team, a ton of time instead of copying and pasting answers over into another Excel spreadsheet. Dataiku has figured out a way to automate that process, and overall, it's going to improve our morale. Then there's a third piece that we did not quite mention in this project, but we're looking to conduct in the future, which is to also improve customer satisfaction. And the reason we say this is because this new project, the new idea here is we're going to take our sustainability report and public information and use the LLM to help answer questions that customers come at us with on a daily, weekly basis. This is going to save our team a ton of time as we spend, I would say, 50% of our time answering a lot of our customer questions. So this new phase three is also going to be really, really helpful to our team. And overall, from phase one, two, and three, Dataiku definitely delivers on their promises. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ryan Bridges. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up today's presentation. So if you have any questions, please feel to reach out. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time.